Welcome to the Jesse Lee Falls podcast. We're here talking about the micro music business. I had some really interesting things happen to me here just in the past couple weeks. Wanted to talk to you guys about some of the stuff that's going on. So first of all, I've been researching sync licensing for television and film for about the past 2 years. I started researching it just right around the end of COVID. And there's a guy named Jesse Josephson who I started absorbing all of his videos. And just this last weekend, over the weekend, I attended virtually his seminar for songwriters getting in touch directly with some of these library CEO owners. And everybody did their spiel about their specific company and what their specific niche is, and it was really great. So I submitted my music to a specific CEO. I'm not going to mention any names right now. But I'm just waiting. And so Jesse Josephson and this CEO are going to actually listen to the tracks that I submitted. And I'm just super excited because this is a really good testament to this is what it takes, if you're going to be trying to do this music business at all. I started my own publishing company when I was 25, and technically it was my ex-wife, Trish, who actually started it. She did the paperwork through ASCAP and all that stuff. I was actually in the Coast Guard at the time, and I was underway. And she got a hold of me. I was in San Diego, and she got a hold of me and told me what she did. And so, this has been a work in progress for like 20 years. It's crazy to think that. But my whole point to this is that I finally put out a product here this year that I recently just... this is the product that it took me, 20 years to create. These things just don't happen overnight. There's so much learning and so much to the process that gets you to where you'll eventually be. And this is really exciting for me because I get to share, this experience with you guys. Somebody who did submit their music, and now it's like, okay, now we get to see what happens. It's like, did I make the cut? Is my stuff good enough? And all that stuff. But the bottom line is that, if no matter how it turns out, for good, bad, or indifferent, getting your music into the hands of real decision makers is invaluable. Yeah, we're always looking for the deal, but it's the validation. I think that it's always the validation is the real currency that musicians go by. And I think the reason why is because this is a real peer review. This is like, somebody who I consider he's to be at the top of the food chain. And he's somebody who with real decision-making power. And to be able to, it takes a long time just to be able to get your music into the hands of people like that. So it's exciting. And I'm stoked that I get to share this with, the small audience that I'm starting to just build. Which brings me to another point. I heard them talk about some things in the seminar this week that I just really loved, and there's this common theme or mantra that keeps popping up, which is, go out and fail. Don't be afraid to fail. And that's really where I started from. That's why I started, when I broke away from my band that I was playing with in my early 20s, and I moved to California and I got married, and I just kind of broke off from the whole musician world because I was frustrated. I wanted to take my band on the road. Nobody really wanted to go on the road. Nobody wanted to leave their coffee jobs and their little comfortable shop jobs that they had to go on the road. So I eventually just got frustrated and I moved to California and married the girl that I was with at the time. And she was the one that helped me build and start my independent record label, Infinity 12 Records. And, from there, I can just share all kinds of stories that came from that. I mean, her and I personally just started building everything from the ground up. I mean, I didn't have a band, but I was going to produce music. I didn't know what I was doing, and I went out and bought the gear. I went and got a DAW, and this is 2004. So this is when, DAWs were, fairly new. The digital world had been around for, a few years, but, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew what gear I needed. So I went and bought the gear, and I actually had to have somebody from the boat that I was on, the Coast Guard cutter Boutwell out of Alameda. He had to come over and actually hook the stuff up for me. Shout out to Lucas Oliver, wherever you are, buddy. So he comes over, he has to hook everything up, and then from there I just started recording. I knew I needed to mic things. I mean, my gear was not great, but I did have a one of those MXL condenser mics, one of those Marshall condenser mics. I think I got it for $50. It was on sale. But my point being is that I didn't know what I was doing, but I had the drive to make music, and I think there was something had a lot to do with the fact that I was in the Coast Guard at the time, that we were at war at the time. And even though I was in the Coast Guard, the boat that I was on, it literally, when I got stationed on it, it literally just came back from the Persian Gulf. So with a couple of deployments that I had done, it just kind of dawned on me that, I could be one of those guys that just doesn't come home. So I think just being in the military, my mortality was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of always being put in my face, and since I had the money and I was, getting paid pretty decently for even a non-rate, it was still better money than I was really used to. I went out and without even knowing what I was doing, I just bought the gear and I made an album. And that album, actually a couple songs got picked up. I think 3 songs got picked up, on internet radio. One radio station was from out of Belgium, ZRO, and one was out of Connecticut. And yeah, it's funny. I always think of that movie Singles, oh, hey, at least we're big in Belgium. But the point is that even though I didn't know what I was doing, I was able to produce something. And that's kind of the whole point to where I'm going with all this. I don't even know what I'm doing when it comes to podcasting, and I know that musicians, we get called pretentious a lot, and sometimes we do act pretentious, but we are also not just it's I think it's more than just like pretending to be something that you're not. It's just that we're really not afraid as creative people to just dive in and start doing something that we don't have any idea what we're doing. Um, so I think that that's something that we just really need to, that creative spirit, something we need to hold on to, and especially with the AI stuff that's coming into play. Um, we should just be creating for the hell of it. Just create because it's fun. Keep the fun in there. That's really why we create. The business part of it can be pretty overwhelming at times because we're trying to figure out ways to make money with our art, and that's all good and fine. Like we want to be able to show that we can make a living with it. We want to be able to we want to be able to stand on it, so to speak. But just coming back to full circle, what I was talking about initially is that it took me 20 years to get to a place where I've been able to now submit my music to somebody who has real decision making. This could be something that if I get accepted to a music library, then I'm going to start making music for a music library and hopefully start getting some placements. And that can be extremely game changing because that's mailbox money, and that's what most of us musicians are really striving for. Um, this is just isn't something that happens overnight. It just isn't. When you're the one doing everything, you have to be the one that's actually out there researching and finding out different avenues and different ways for you to even be able to capitalize off of your art. And everybody's in such a it's such a weird paradox that we want to make money, but nobody wants to sell out, and that's just that's a really weird. The waters are already hard to navigate. I think that makes it even harder because, like, if you sell out, if you are successfully marketing yourself and you're actually making money, that you're doing something wrong. There's some kind of like, you're probably a greedy tyrant of some sorts, and so it's like even the people who are like being successful, like they're not even held account. They're not even held, held up as being successful. Like, oh, well, you must be stealing, and obviously, I think that that's just really counterproductive because I I heard somebody else describe what selling out is, and selling out isn't being successful in your field or whatever market or genre you're in. Selling out is when you establish yourself one way in maybe one genre, and then you start to change your foundation to try to suit yourself or try to put yourself into some other avenue for the sake of money. That's what selling out is. Selling out is not making, or I'm sorry, making money off of who you aren't or who you established yourself to be initially. And I think that's a better definition. I think that's way more accurate. I think we all kind of saw that with, like, hate to say it because I like them, Metallica. But I think that we all saw that, we kind of felt like they sold out for a minute, and I'm not knocking the band because I think it's a really good testament also that it shows that even huge bands have their crap suck moments.